Today's topic is transitioning from corporate to entrepreneurship with Anita Heidema.
Welcome to the Well Woman Show, where we interview women executives, leaders, and entrepreneurs.
And you're listening to the Well Woman Show,
where motivated women achieve fulfillment and well-being.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show.
Take time for myself by coming to things like Well Woman Drinks.
To be accepting of myself no matter what. Step away from judgment as much as possible.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show.
You're going to be in for a good ride. I don't regret anything. Everything I've ever done, I've learned from it, one way or another, good or bad.
Being a little bit selfish for yourself, put your own oxygen mask on first and then give what's left.
I'm a woman. I would prefer to tell my own story. My story, though it's very personal, is universal.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show. And now your host, Giovanna Rossi.
Hi, Giovanna Rossi here, and welcome to another episode of the Well Woman Show, where I interview women leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs about their lives and their road to becoming and being who they are today. Are you feeling burned out or finding it hard to focus on your goals? Or are you in transition? Well, you're not alone. We all need to activate our superpowers. These are the internal strengths and abilities we all already have but don't use all the time. Superpowers can be cultivated, and they include empathy, love, intuition, courage, and more. As always, this episode is brought to you by Well Woman Life, a global community of women living our best lives. Whether it's your health, relationships, your money, or making an impact in your community and the world, Well Woman Life has you covered. You've made a commitment to not settle, to use your voice, and to live your best life. Well Woman Life offers annual memberships, workshops, and retreats to support you. Check out wellwomanlife.com/Facebook to join our growing community. Now back to the show. Happy holidays to everyone. Today's topic is transitioning from corporate to entrepreneurship. And hopefully by the end of the show, you'll be inspired to use your life lessons, take the leap with an upcoming opportunity, and create the life you really want. As you can tell, my voice is really, really scratchy today. I'm getting over a little cold over the holidays. But I definitely wanted to bring you this interview because it's amazing. My guest today is Anita Heidema, a mindset coach and business strategist. So for all of you out there in transition between opportunities or trying to make a new move in your career, this is a great interview for you. Anita is a best-selling author of Vitality Knocks, an international speaker, and a business entrepreneur. She helps entrepreneurs develop their life and business on their terms with proper mindset and strategies. She has 27 years of experience in management, operations, and sales for large corporations and helps business owners be successful as entrepreneurs. So in this episode, Anita and I talk about finding your life lessons, how entrepreneurs find work-life balance. That's one of my favorite topics. And also how to program your subconscious. The free giveaway today is a chapter from Anita's book, Vitality Knocks, and you can get it at wellwomanlife.com/096show. You can also join the conversation with us in the Well Woman Life community group at wellwomanlife.com/Facebook. Now to my interview with Anita Heidema. Welcome to the program.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
It's so good to talk to you. We met at a business entrepreneur conference. And so I love now that I'm interviewing you on my show. So Anita, I wanted to start by asking you, when I introduced this show, I let the listeners know about your bio and some of that. But I really want to know from you, who are you in the world today as a woman, as a business owner, who are you in the world today?
It's not very well put, because a lot of times we go behind our titles and our achievements and what that is, but it doesn't always mean, truly who you are inside and what your passions are. It's sort of what your accomplishments, but there's so much more to that, right?
Yeah.
And, as life is a journey and carries on, we just have developed and learned so much. And it was interesting. I saw the actual definition of entrepreneur the other day, and it's finding weaknesses in areas and improving on them. And I thought, it was such a wonderful way of putting that. And many times I think of that. I'm always looking to helping other people and to creating more. I've been through many challenges in life, as many of us have, and it's finding the best situation, I guess, the glass half full in where that is. So, I'm in a place right now where I've learned so much. I turned 50 this year, and there's a lot of wisdom that comes with that in learning from those life lessons along the way. That's made me who I am today. So.
Yeah. And Anita, what are you working on right now, and how does it impact women's lives and well-being?
Oh, I'm working on lots of projects. I've got a TV show, I've got a podcast, and it's all about helping people learn from their life lessons. And actually, my book, Vitality Knocks, is the same thing. And it's really relating a lot to entrepreneurs and what's out there. And, I also have a program that's coming out in November, which is Rich Life in Business. And it's really important, especially as entrepreneurs, but everybody else, to live a rich life and build that foundation that is so important to be able to move you into those successes in your life and those strategies that you are be able to have in place. I know myself, when I wasn't healthy and I wasn't taking care of myself and I wasn't happy in what I was doing, I was failing at other things, even though I knew the strategies. So to me, it's so important that you build that foundation. And so the program I'm releasing next month is Rich Life in Business. And that's where it strikes your core and really into your heart and who you are and what that is, to build that strength. And then that leads in, of course, to my business program that I have from January to December for entrepreneurs, that gets into the nitty gritty, like real hard motivation and business plans and sales and social media and all the rest of that kind of stuff, right?
Okay. And so let's go back a little bit and dig into some of what you just said, which is what was your life like before you had those that sort of awakening or whatever the process was? What was your life like, and how did it shift? Like, what was the downside, and then how did it shift?
Major shifting things that happened. One was, I was in a marriage with a narcissist for 20 years, which was pretty brutal. So when I was able to get myself out of that, it was quite something to move forward. And I always worked in the corporate world, and realizing that and feeling that, climbing the corporate ladder was so important. So in that transition with everything that happened, I'd lost my health. I had lost, the focus and direction where I wanted to go. And my true passion was to be an entrepreneur. And, even though I had so many successes in the corporate world, at the end of the day, I found out I was really just a number. And, I was in the street, gone from 6 figures to 0. And that's a whole other long story. But, I literally had 2 mortgages, just divorced, realizing that I had to earn an income, figuring out what that was, and losing your identity, because, I had a high identity, working in a $1 billion global company that, I was sort of relating to, and letting my health go. So that was probably one of the biggest things, was like, I always say when you fallen really low, and you're sitting there, crying yourself to sleep, can barely get yourself moving, and knowing you have to, and there's no other choice, because, I didn't really have a big family or big support system. I had to pick myself up and figure out, how to work from corporate and having, a marketing department and all these things behind you, to all of a sudden being an entrepreneur. And that's a huge, huge shift in what that was. And then I think one of the other ones was, caring for my parents that passed away, and my mom, who had, because around that time that I became an entrepreneur, my mom got really sick, and they said she had Alzheimer's, which turned out to be Lewy body dementia that I have a foundation for now. And that's a whole other long story. But seeing that transition, that life is so short, and knowing what that was. So that's where I built up, that strength and that foundation in myself to really move forward, and not, I always think of that as that oak tree. That you sway in the wind, but nothing's going to unroot you. And, that's what you have to do. And that's what I did for myself, and then manage my business and the strategies around my business, because my mom needed more care and I only had 24 hours in a day. How do I monetize a business, So that's when I started to get, a little bit more online with what I was doing and combine it with different ways to be able to earn an income and have that flexibility to care for her. And, that was a huge transition and change as well at that time.
This all happened around the same time, the divorce, the job, and your parents?
Yeah. So the divorce happened a year later, I call it a job loss. They wanted me to go somewhere else. And I said no. And then they said, okay, bye-bye. So I really didn't end up getting any kind of money or package or whatever you call that. So I literally went from 6 figures to nothing. And then in that time, my mom also got sick. And because I'm all my family's in Holland and I have my brother in Vancouver, I'm the one that was, we were best friends. I was sort of there trying to manage all of this at the same time. So I had to learn really quick first how to be an entrepreneur, which is a huge step on its own. Anyone that's made that transition, from, getting a steady paycheck, and directing employees and being, I thought I was the hero in the company, and then all of a sudden that's pulled from you. Right. And you have to be able to, take care of yourself and know that you can still do it and it's in you. Change that mindset, because all of a sudden now you're a lone wolf. I had a secretary that took care of things. Right. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, I don't know how to do this. You're realizing, right? Yeah. So that was a huge transition. And then how do I run my business? Because at that time I was seeing clients one-on-one, right? And that's how I started building. And I also tied it, originally it was around travel. So when I was in the corporate world, I actually trained myself as a coach, and it took 6 years because they had hired me a coach. So that's why I knew what coaching was. Before that, coaching, like now, everybody seems to be a coach. But at that time, this is 12 years ago, or even more, I think now, there wasn't that many coaches out there. And I thought, is it therapy, or are they playing baseball or basketball? But I learned the power of what coaching was, and I had trained myself not to know that so many years later, which is, my business is now 7 years old, that I would be using that. And I tied coaching with travel, and get a way to find your way, and bringing, clients a way to find out what they want in their business and their life, and then bringing them back and bringing, when you get back to reality, it's not always, rosy, because when you travel, of course, you can either be on a beach or you explore or you do different things. And that's how my business originally started. But then my mom got sick. And I had to figure out how to still monetize this business and be there for her, right? And she unfortunately is no longer with me, but yeah, it was a tough time. It really, really was, and getting through all that and still keeping yourself afloat. It's life hits you with curveballs for sure, and it's learning from them and moving forward and keeping yourself motivated and learning the right strategies, right? Right.
So I totally hear you, because I went through the transition of leaving a job with a really high salary and going out on my own while I had a 1-year-old and wanted to have another baby. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it was kind of a crazy time to do that. Looking back on it, like, what was I thinking? But I'm so glad I did it, when I did. But, yeah, so thinking about what you were saying, what was thinking about your definition of entrepreneurship that you brought up earlier, what was the problem you were looking at solving?
Well, I loved helping people. And that's one thing I noticed even when I was, and getting teams together and creating something new. So, my big thing in the company I work for was always working going into a different division. At the time I was in sales originally, and they had done this test on me or whatever it was called, and said that I was to move up in the company. And so what my strength was really inspiring, empowering people. So I'd work into different departments, looking at what the weakness was in those departments, and then being able to put that together with strategies to move forward. So I would have these big boardrooms where I would do SWOT analysis. Okay, how are we moving forward with this? And that was always my sweet spot in knowing that, I don't always know everything, but as long as you dive in there with that kind of a mindset, you can fix anything. And that's really what an entrepreneur is, creating something from really nothing. Yeah, we watch people and what they're doing and what works and whatnot. But really, the end of the day, we have to look back into our heart and trust our instincts and look back to that, because we can get so caught up in the maze of everything. So, when I would do SWOT analysis, yes, we would look at the strengths and weaknesses and what the, opposition was doing, and, look at the opportunities and all of that. But at the end of the day, how did we want to move forward with our mission and our vision? And it doesn't change whether you're a large corporation or whether it's just, a solopreneur, right? And it's finding that sweet spot. So when I got myself out of that, I really realized that was where I wanted to be. So like I said, at the time I was the master coach. Now I don't even want to call myself a coach anymore, because there's so many people out there. Yeah. It doesn't have the same meaning as it did, back then. But it's finding what's that inside you, and then working those strategies in place to still stay true to who you are. Right. So that was sort of my sweet spot then, and I've carried it through with my business.
Actually, I think there might be a lot of listeners interested in this business of coaching in all the different areas. And it is something that like everyone is doing now. So how do you differentiate yourself from other coaches? And do you use other terminology like consultant or mentor?
Well, I call myself a lot of times a strategist. I mean, in some areas you'll see a mindset coach and business strategist, because I ended up getting into hypnotherapy as well. So I talk about the mind power and the rest of it as well. But I think what happens is, people have read my book, Vitality Knots. They've seen me speak. They've been through some of my programs, and they resonate to who I am. So I don't necessarily have to say what I do. It kind of speaks for itself in what I do. Yeah. And people will see that, online now. I was at a conference yesterday, and there's this Italian minister that was up there, and she talked about how we have to get real to what is true out there. There's so many mirrors and fog that's out there that people are getting lost in what is real. And that's what ends up happening is once you get out there more, and I get more speaking or on podcasts or whatever that is, just like you, people understand the genuine you and who that is and what you can do for them. I have clients that have started small little businesses and get lost in it, and, building up that foundation, who they are, to inspire them and realize they can move forward. And it's not just a rah, rah, rah. It's really fact. Your brain controls in your mind where you're going to go, and then put them into the program if they want to build that business, business plans, strategies, social media, where you want to take that's still true to your vision. Right.
So Anita, when do people come to you? At what stage are they in? Are they at a real low, or are they, sort of where are they when they come and need your help?
I find I get people from all areas, and that's why I've put the Rich Life in Business, and why I actually have VIP days as well, to bring people to that level. So some of them are so low, they're going to be giving up on their business, and, they find a little source of income there to be able to do it. They realize the value in coaching. Someone pays $100, they can make $5, $10, $1,000 so quickly. I mean, those are possibilities, and they realize that. So it can be anyone that's just sort of starting and realizing that, or someone that's been spinning their wheels over and over again and going, they're ready to give up, or they know that they, I have some clients that are doing really well and they want to get into $1 million, Mm-hmm. So there's all that in between that comes. It just depends on which area in my programs they're interested in coming to.
Now, how do you separate business coaching versus life coaching? And do you do both?
Yeah, I find that they overlap, right? So with my Rich Life in Business, it's a bit more of a life type of thing that adds the business as an entrepreneur. So Rich Life in Business, that's coming out in November. But the rest of it is more in the business end of things. But when I deal with a client one-on-one in a VIP day or whatever that's going to be, we always talk about mindset and keeping motivated and talking about your life, because as entrepreneurs, we know they overlap. Mm. So how do we find that work-life balance? I do a lot of traveling in my work. And, the other day I was writing a blog, and I'm driving through I wasn't driving personally. I was a passenger through the Alps, right? And my computer's sliding from side to side. And these are the things you got to do as an entrepreneur sometimes, right? But I'm able to still do it and still travel and enjoy. So for me, the way I've created that work-life balance I think a lot of my clients resonate too, and they want to know, how can I do this in my business? How do I not have to be stressed all the time? Looking at my bank account with no money. Like you can do it.
That makes me laugh because I also am very big on achieving work-life balance, especially with 2 little kids. And
yeah, I can imagine.
We were traveling all summer in Europe, and my sister took a picture of me. I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, oh yeah, this is just what I do. But she was like, oh my gosh, this is so funny. I have to take a picture of you. I'm sitting like under a portal kind of porch thing with, pouring with rain all around me. And I'm like in the only little area that's got no rain. And I've got my laptop like balanced on my knee in front of me, like trying to get work done. And she was just like,
I love it.
What is going on here? But yeah, that's the entrepreneur life, right?
Mm-hmm. And if you want it that way, some people, they've built that entrepreneur life and they just want to have a brick and mortar business 9 to 5, and they developed it that way, right? So
yeah, it's all about your choices and how you want to design it.
Yeah, for sure.
So Anita, can you walk us through something specific about your mindset lessons or something that you can, sort of really that we can dig our teeth into here?
Yeah. So I talk a lot about your subconscious mind and how we program ourselves and we live in our past and how we need to forget some of that, I like to always, I want to put my clients in there, but I don't always like using their stories. So I get into sometimes what my stories are, and I was always told when I was younger that I'm a girl. I was a European background. So my parents, no failing to them because you don't know what you don't know. And they were wonderful parents, always told me that, I was meant to get married one day and someone was going to take care of me. I just had to look pretty. And I really wasn't needed to do well in school, and I wasn't needed to do well in this and that. And, I didn't have to really earn an income. I just had to be pretty and be out there. And, I was always a little bit chunkier. So, my brother would tell me, oh yeah, you call me fat sacks. And, those things, they play in your mind, right? And everyone out there can hear those things and can still remember those childhood memories, right? And it's getting rid of that, Yes, I'm not a size 10. And, yes, I'm not this or whatever, but I have, a reason in life, and I have those things that I can accomplish. And in some ways, I almost fought those, when I got high into business. And at 16, I bought a car. At 21, I bought a house. Like I just was so much wanting to fight the system of what my parents wanted, but it created who I was today, right? But people carry those things, and I still find it in myself. So, I've created this program called Mind Your Business Class. It's in my website, and it's an hour and a half program. And it's affirmations, and it's program your subconscious mind. I've also created some meditation CDs through my hypnotherapy that helps program your subconscious mind. You just listen to them. You do meditation. I have in the Mind Your Business class is an actual affirmation sheet you put on your bathroom mirror. I am beautiful. I am successful. I am, all those things. I am, confident. All those things that beat us up over the day, and especially with social media nowadays. Our brain is constantly going, and, we wake up and we've got this great feeling of confidence and we're going to get the world. And then all of a sudden it's down to a little pea by the end of the day, right? Because we beat ourselves up so much. So I think the process is programming that subconscious mind. And that's sort of where the start of everything happens.
Isn't that amazing?
It's an ongoing thing too, right?
Yeah. I just think it's so amazing that everybody is actually really just dealing with the same, handful of issues. And it's all about, sort of, changing your mind about it, right? The mindset shift. How I can be talking to like a quote unquote regular person 1 minute and, an author of, 20 best-selling books, millions of books sold and very famous author in the next moment. And they're saying the same exact thing. Like they have the same exact issues.
Yeah.
So it's just remembering that it's not just you and there is a way out. And yeah, it's amazing, but it takes practice and it takes work.
Yeah, definitely. And it's almost, I know I have a program called 21 Day Journey to Success. It's still sitting there somewhere, but it basically, and I do it within the Rich Life and Business, it's building those habits. So when you get up, write that journal. When you get to the bathroom and you're brushing your teeth, say those affirmations. It's building that little routine every day. And, even when my book that came out 3 years ago, I had became bestseller because it was sort of it was a life lesson book, but you read one chapter a night and then you reflected back on your lessons back in your life and you dream about it. So it's a fictional self-help book because you would actually think back to where maybe you didn't listen to that lesson. And that's the thing, I don't know who, your hero is or whatever that is. And there's so many that we have out there. I love Richard Branson. I think Oprah's phenomenal. And you look to where they've gone to from where they've been and they've learned from those life lessons, right? As opposed to just keep on doing them over and over again. Yeah. And that's the message in Vitality Knocks, my book. It's Vitality is the character and Knocks is those lessons that you keep knocking on your door, right? You don't always listen to. Mm-hmm. And, it's so important to do that kind of stuff. So like you said, you look at somebody and like you said, you can have someone that's a best-selling author or somebody that is just starting a business or whatever. There's really no differences. It's just how you've learned from your lessons and moved forward and kept motivated, right?
Yeah. Well, and you have to recognize the lessons in the first place in order to learn from them, right?
Yeah.
So we're moving into the segment called Superpowers for Success. First, a quick word from our sponsor. Being a well woman includes being financially healthy. Our sponsors, Lorraine L. and Kate Stalter of Better Money Decisions, are on a mission to eliminate complexity and confusion from your financial life. They replace Wall Street jargon with straightforward talk you can understand, and they create investment and retirement plans customized for your needs and your future. Download a free copy of their latest book, Don't Let Your Money Kick the Bucket Before You Do, and learn how to avoid the biggest mistakes women make when planning for retirement. Go to bettermoneydecisions.com/wellwoman and download your free book today. So I want to ask you a few questions. The first one is, what does success in life mean for you?
It's a mixture of everything because, I understand that finances are very important, but I'm not run by that. I call myself a heart-centered entrepreneur, but at the end of the day, we have to have a business that is not a hobby. It has to be something that's going to be able to sustain you in one way or another. But driving yourself towards that success and that passion, what's most important to you. So, we talked earlier on that I really love helping other people and seeing them succeed, to learn from something that I've done or something that I've learned to be able to move them forward and them taking that and being able to move forward. So to me, success is being able to have, the freedom of time, the freedom of finances, to be able to have the freedom to be able to speak and reach other people and help them in what they're doing. To me, that brings me success and makes the feeling of success.
Okay. And when did you know you were really good at what you do?
You know what? It's so hard to say because, I look back when I was 6, I think I was 6. I lived in a neighborhood that was actually a little bit of a rough neighborhood here in Canada. And my parents didn't know when they bought it originally. But my first thing I did when I was 6 was I got tadpoles out of the river and I went door to door to sell these tadpoles. That, if I look back, realizes I was an entrepreneur. I would actually go back and make sure that saw if they turn into frogs. I went and follow up. Yeah. And then I did, this tattoo thing that I would make these little tattoos on paper and then put them on people. And that I was an entrepreneur all that time, but I didn't listen to that inner voice and that instinct. Right. So I think if I really look back, way back then, I was an entrepreneur, but I was too much of a chicken. How can I make money doing this? I was selling flowers in a bar when I was 17. I used to make a killing, but I still didn't really think it was me and that I could do that somewhere else. So when I started, the corporate job and I got the title and the car and all this, I'm like, and the benefits, you get lost in all of that. And I was too chicken to really step forward. So, in doing that, I realized I was an entrepreneur and helping others. They would come to me all the time, to be able to do that. The company too would come to me to say, okay, how do we fix this? Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And also I do think that as women, we tend to undervalue our natural ability and skill. So, you were selling flowers and making a killing, but you were like, oh, well, this is just easy for me. This isn't a real, thing.
Yeah, for sure.
And we always tend to second guess ourselves on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's sad. It really is. I think everyone has such a huge power within them. And that's why, shows like this that you're doing is so important for women to realize that, right?
Yeah. So, Anita, can you describe a personal habit that contributes to your well-being?
I have a sort of a habit morning routine and evening routine. I really love journaling. It brings focus to what I'm doing and where I'm going and what that is, because I don't know if I was ADD or what, but my mind is constantly going. I'm thinking of ideas. I'm thinking of this, and I almost need to channel it. And that's why I love meditation too, and channel it and journal it. Like, okay, this is where I'm focusing on. This is what's important, because, where my creativity and my brain goes. And that's where my book Vitality Knocks came. I get up at 3 a.m. and I'm like, you need to write a book. And I'm like, what? And next thing I'm writing this book about this girl, Vitality, who was my actual avatar, and putting this thing together, so I need to be able to journalize and write these things down that are so important, and target and focus myself. So journaling and meditation to bring yourself forward and motivate yourself, but also calm the mind to be focused is really important.
Okay. And what superpower did you discover you had only to realize it was there all the time?
Wow. I don't know. Superpower. I don't know. I just think it's generally all over. And, I think we all have that superpower within us, but it's a bit of everything, I think that resilience has been huge in my life. If I really was to get into depth with all the details of everything that's happened, most people, their head turns and I don't want to be saying woe's me and all the rest of it, but, resilience is huge, and being able to take a situation and make something from it, so if I was to say anything about myself, I'd probably say the resilience and being able to learn from that life lesson and make it into something else, right?
Well, that goes very nicely into my next question, which is, what do you do when you get knocked down? How do you get back up?
Well, it depends. I mean, there's been times where, people that know me, I used to have this punching bag in my basement that was my son's. So when I got frustrated, I really think everybody gets into their downs, and you have to find that way of getting yourself out of it. And I have no desire to get into alcohol or into drugs. And that's what some people fall into, right? So sometimes when I get, remember when my mom, when she had the Alzheimer's and I was the only one dealing with everything. And it was hard trying to find out what was real and what wasn't real, because she'd do these things that were nasty and mean. And I get down there and I just do this punching bag and just cry and punch and get all that out. Right. I always found that was a huge stress relief for me, and being resilient, and then sitting down, focusing, meditating, and then get myself back on my feet. It was that release almost of being able to get that out, and then going, okay, now I got to put on my big girl pants. And, I have this speech I do. It's called Suck It Up Cupcake. So I say, suck it up cupcake, and let's figure out how we're going to move forward, because we know we have to make it happen. And it's not easy. I don't say it's easy. And that's why it's nice to have mentors and coaches and people to help you with those kind of things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And what advice would you give your 25 or 30-year-old self?
I probably was to trust my instincts, I think, I'm 50, I'm 50 now, I'm 50. And I think back and I'm like, why didn't I learn that lesson way back then? I'm much more insightful now and really listening and tuning into, meditating and, okay, what does that mean? Where does that go? Why am I doing this over and over again? And it's scary how, fear can derail you, all these things from when you're told and you think you got it straight. And then all of a sudden you're wondering why you're doing that specific day, and you're like, why did I do that? And it still comes back. And that's why my Mind Your Business class is a really good one, because I call that your auto success mindset. When you get into that point in your life, do I turn right or left? It has you kind of think for a second. And I wish I would have trusted my instincts, or maybe had done some type of a program similar to that when I was 24, 25, or been a little bit more enlightened in that time. to really understand it. And maybe it just wasn't my time at that. I don't know, but if I had to, I would probably say, trust my instincts more. They were there, the lessons were there.
Well, and that's such a big one because everybody struggles with that. I think unless you're super in tune all the time with a very rigorous daily practice of meditation and everything, it's very easy to overlook your instincts, It takes hard work to keep at it.
Yeah, for sure. It is. And you just have to be aware. It's just an awareness thing. We get so busy and caught up in our lives that we don't take. And that's why for me, journaling is so important because it just takes you back, no one else around you, and just put your thoughts down. And I'm still a pen and paper person. Some people want to do it on an iPod or whatever. But it's so important to just have that time and tune into you, and it's not woo-woo. It's important.
Yeah. And, hearing your story about when you were little and sort of the social and family pressures to look a certain way and act a certain way because of your gender, do you identify as a feminist?
Not really, actually. And I don't. It's interesting because the business I got into, I was the first female sales rep in Canada in the paper industry. And I don't know if you know much about the paper industry, it's very male orientated. And even nowadays, I'm not 100% sure, but they have this thing called Me Too out there, the hashtag Me Too.
Yeah. Talking
about, I survived and did it because I didn't make a huge thing about it, but just would make a point of it, but not create such a stink. And that's why I stayed in and was able to move up in the business and in the industry and had the good reputation that I had, right? So I don't think of myself as a feminist. And I think that we're all equal, men and women, and we should be treated like that. But so I think the women, sometimes they lose their rights for sure. But as far as a feminist, I'm not 100% sure. I think I need to understand a bit more of that definition and what that is, because so far when I've seen some feminists come forward, it's rah, it should not be history. It should be herstory, and it's like, what? There's just so much craze around that. And maybe it's some of that that's got us to where we are. I think we're such resilient people as women. We've been able to really move forward and come a long way from where we did before. I look back to when I first started, in this business, and I was the only female, in the sales force. And the first ski day, the first day they had for customer appreciation, it was a men's only ski day.
Oh, wow. And
I remember going into the general manager and going, okay, you hire me as a salesperson and you realize I'm female, so it was a sort of a knock,
oh my
chip
gosh.
away.
So you couldn't go on the trip?
No. And I invited actually a female client, and I couldn't go and she couldn't go. So I remember walking into the general manager. I had to make my presence heard, but I didn't go around around the office and My presence got heard and they didn't do it again. They realized that, oh yeah, we got a woman on the team. We got to realize that, as opposed to, going to human resources and doing all this kind of stuff. Right. I think it's just
wild.
Yeah. But
I don't think that's legal right now anymore.
Well, and it isn't. And I don't even think it was then. But that's why I said I don't really think of myself as a feminist, because I think a feminist might have gone maybe, and I could be wrong. Like I just would go to HR and make this big thing and I handled it just briefly with myself and it never happened again. And the message kind of spread along quietly throughout the office that women became more accepted,
I know I know that you have, there are definite issues with the word feminist and there's baggage with that terminology. But the definition I use for feminism is, working for or, prioritizing social, political, and economic equality in whatever way, So it can be in a quiet way, going to the manager and having the conversation and having that practice stop. That's a show of feminism in that definition. Or going and holding a rally outside with signs and all the rest of it, could also be in that same definition. But, Yeah, I just think people think about the word in different ways, but knowing your story of how you grew up with such structural sexism in your own personal life from society and your parents, and as you said, it wasn't because they were bad parents, it's because of what I will call it is structural sexism, where they learned that was the way to do things. And so they taught you that way. Anyway, just thinking of all of that, it's very interesting that in my eyes, you are a feminist. It's just that you don't relate to that word. So it's just interesting.
Well, I think and in the way you explain it, probably, yes, I am a feminist, but I would say I'm more of a equality activist, maybe. And, there's an organization, Women Economic Forum, that I belong to, and I'm the chair in Canada for them, and they're based out of India. And, we've gone all over the world, and I've spoken to different areas, talking about equality and raising women up. And, us in North America is so different than what's happening in India. When I was there, so there's so much to be done in equality amongst everyone around the world, and it's so important. So, yes, I've been there, and that's why everyone's putting this Me Too and hashtag, and I've been sort of like, I don't really want to come out, but I do, and I don't really understand it completely because I'm always advocating, equality. And sometimes I've had men come to me and say, well, your business is all about women, and I want to be a client of yours. And I'm like, no, it's not. I mean, it's meant for men and women. I find that a lot of more women, they resonate to me because they know what I've done and where I'm going. But I have a lot of male clients as well, and it's that equality across the board, I think, is so important. And women, they've come so far, and we're going so much farther. And in many ways, we're better than men in certain things, and they're better than we in others. And we need to use our strengths and build. And that's the way I've always done in business and corporate. Where's our strengths and our weaknesses, and how do we come together? And I think as a world, we can do that as well, right? And as opposed to creating it as, I don't know if I'm wording this right, but we're women, we stand strong. Oh, we're men, why don't we come together as a collaborative, right? And it's really important for me. So, yeah, I think I'm a feminist. I think of myself as we could go on forever with this one. As an equality activist, I'm not really sure.
Like that.
But
I like the equality activist. All right, so moving on. But this is so fascinating, and I ask everybody this. So. Just the variety of answers is so interesting. But Anita, what are you reading right now? What's on your nightstand?
My nightstand is Magic, and I'm trying to think of who wrote that one.
Elizabeth
it's the girl.
Gilbert.
Yes. And she's the Eat, Pray, Love, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really like what she's coming out with Magic. But I'm in the middle of creating my Rich Life and Biz, and it's been keeping me quite busy. So I haven't really been reading as much as I want to. So it's on my bedside, but I haven't been totally diving into it as I like. But Magic, I'm really enjoying it. I'm enjoying what she's come out with and with that, and about creativity, and then it's a universal creativity,
Yeah.
And how we get these downloads, and each one of us is creative in our own way.
Yeah.
And I think it's so important that people are expressing themselves. Like with me, I never thought of myself as an author. I don't think of that, but yet my book has helped so many out there and finding their life lessons and being able to move forward with it. That, I have on my title a best-selling author because it became a best-selling book. But still, it's that creativity with the magic that's so important. But
yeah, I love that book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I've been so busy working on the program and getting that out for November, A Rich Life and Business, which is going to be awesome.
Well, Anita, we will link to that in the show notes, and everybody can go. We'll link to your website and also to your book and everything. And people can follow up and get all of that information. And we'll also link to some of the other things that we mentioned in the show. And
thank you.
I just want to thank you for being on the show. It's been such a pleasure speaking with you.
I love, when we met in California, I absolutely loved it. I knew you were somebody that I wanted to get to know better. So I'm so glad we've done this podcast, and I'd love to have you on my podcast as well.
Yes,
and,
I think we're scheduled to do it.
share your aha moments, right? So it's so important so we can hear more of your story.
All right. Thank you. That's it for our show today. Remember, if you need support to live your Well Woman life, head over to wellwomanlife.com/Facebook to join us. Our monthly live event, Well Woman Drinks, brings women together to share our successes and challenges as women, leaders, moms, aunts, sisters, and all the other roles we carry. If you'd like to attend a Well Woman Drinks near you, or if there isn't one in your city yet and you'd like to start one, email info@wellwomanlife.com. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment and subscribe in iTunes and leave a review. This helps raise visibility, which is super helpful when it comes to producing the show every week. For feedback, comments, or just to let me know you were listening today, find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram @WellWomanLife. I'm Giovanna Rossi for The Well Woman Show. Until next time, have a super powerful week.